Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we turn to talking about the biggest story in the country today, the things going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota. There, of course, have been lots of crazy things happening in that city, and it all goes back to this terrible arrest that resulted in the person getting arrested dying. It was a very tragic, very awful story that unfortunately also got exposed and exploited by many leftists. They love to use these arrests as a way to kind of race bait and get everyone in the country very worked up. And they succeeded because this time they got everyone so worked up about this case that now the whole city of Minneapolis has gone up in flames. Things are on fire there. People are robbing the stores. People are burning down buildings. What they called, eventually they first kind of called them as demonstrations, but now it's turned out into chaos. It's become totally past that. Things have gotten out of control. People are stealing stuff, breaking things. The whole city is on fire, and it's very tragic. It's very sad, and the worst part of all is this didn't have to happen. This was a small story that got blown up by biased people in the media trying to make a whole thing about it, trying to say everyone's racist and stuff like that, like how they always do. And the worst part of all about this story is the fact that the leftists are still defending these people. They're still defending this violence and this kind of stealing and looting and tearing down of places. Target, AutoZone, lots of stores and companies have had their stores totally looted, totally trashed, and the leftists still have the balls to defend that. It's a very interesting, very complicated story, but we're going to go over it all today. We're going to talk about Minneapolis, the arrest. We're going to talk about the demonstrations afterwards, how that turned into craziness, and everything's going to be going over today in this video. But first, let's take a quick moment to check out our sponsor. Guys, today I'm really excited to offer you these amazing Freedom masks. Everyone has to wear masks in a lot of places now, especially in the states that have been hit harder by this crisis. And you don't want to keep wearing the same mask over and over again. That's what happens whenever you have to wear them all the time, and you start to smell a stink in them because they start to catch your breath and catch bacteria that needs to be cycled. So it's more important now than ever to get multiple masks with replaceable, cleanable filters like this Freedom mask that we're offering you today. This flash sale can save you up to 60% on the mask too, and if you look at this picture, it looks pretty cool. It's very comfortable, form-fitting. It's got these little filter things here that you can replace, take out, remove, all that kind of stuff. And as the article says, the number one way to stay safe from polluted air and environmental pathogens is by buying the Freedom mask today. And you could save by using the special link below this video. Use that exclusive link to get a special offer only for the NoBS crowd like you guys. Thanks for your time today. Order a Freedom mask now. And with that said, let's get back to the show. Great, now that that's out of the way, let's get back to the Minneapolis story. It's of course very stark, very dark and tragic. And again, it all started with this failed arrest attempt. A person was arrested in Minneapolis. They ended up dying because the arrest was a little too aggressive, so to speak. That was terrible. No one is defending that. Everyone knows that was a bad arrest and that was a bad case. And that's very, very sad. It sucks to see that. But I'm not sure if anything had to do with actual racism there. I've seen someone get arrested, but there was no proof it actually was this violent, like hate crime is what people are trying to paint it as. And that's what's resulted in everyone in the press and everyone in that town going crazy. Now, another thing to remember here is Minneapolis and much of Minnesota, this is a liberal run section of the country. Liberals are running these cities and liberals are running these areas. Liberals are probably running those police departments too. And it goes to show that this is why things are getting out of control. They get this kind of bad story into the press. People share it around, race baiting, getting everyone excited about this small case that really most people wouldn't really normally be concerned about. But since the press is talking about it, since celebrities are chiming in, it becomes this whole scandal. And now that's resulted in these crazed demonstrations gone wrong. The demonstrations have turned into them just all out going into Target stores and tearing stuff up, as you could see by this video here. Here's one of the first clips I saw. This has 1.6 million views, and you could see people just straight up taking stuff from a Target. It's just total chaos. Nothing is under control here. People are just grabbing stuff, and they've really lost the plot if you think about it. These people are not kind of defending this bad arrest like they're trying to defend the people that got arrested or trying to go after the cops and protest them. But stealing TVs has nothing to do with it. Stealing stuff from a Target, like getting yourself a 4K TV, has nothing to do with helping anything. It's just being used. I think these thieves are also exploiting the situation. They're taking advantage of this sort of social chaos, and they're going in and they're having a good excuse to get themselves a vacuum cleaner, get themselves a TV or some decorations. All kinds of stuff is getting taken. This is just one instance, and it goes to show how bad the looting has become. And it also goes to show how bad these liberal-run areas have become. These liberal cities can't keep their places under control. They can't lock things down. They've turned into all-out chaos, and it's just a terrible thing to see. Minneapolis once was a fine city. There's nothing wrong with most of the people around there. It's just a few bad apples and biased media and the terrible liberals running things that have caused them all to kind of fall apart. The next thing I could share is this is some aftermath here. This is a tweet from Ian. It says, "This is Minneapolis, AutoZone, Target, numerous businesses burned down, and affordable housing complexes burned to the ground too." So yeah, it really doesn't make sense. You could see how they've lost the plot. They're just burning their own city. This is very reminiscent of other times these kinds of demonstrations, which were also caused by race baiting, have turned to the people kind of destroying their own places. This happened in Missouri a few years ago whenever we had the whole BLM thing and we had Ferguson happening, and then they burned down their own city. And then this is happening. There were LA riots back in the day when Rodney King happened. That was another race baiting situation. And it just turns into this chaos, and they're burning down their own city. As you can see by this video, I'm watching along with you. It's very hard to watch. It looks like it's end of days here. Like this looks like an apocalypse. This doesn't look like somewhere in America to me. This is looks like it's in some third world country, someplace without government or control. Like this is bad, bad, bad scene. And it's really saddening. I don't want this to happen. There is some proof that, there's vindication for some things on our side. Like we're saying, we can get proof here that liberals are doing bad things. The race baiting has gone too far. They'll defend this. They'll say, oh, it's because of racism we had to do this. But that's not a proper defense. I mean, even if that racism all happened, let's assume and give them the benefit of the doubt. We can debate whether things were hate crimes and whatnot, but let's just assume all this racism that they're claiming is true. Like the cops are racist there and they did a racist thing. I mean, even so, this is not the proper reaction. You can't just go out and steal stuff. You can't just go burn things down. You can't just go take over and abandon the rule of law. It's just not a good look. It's not a proper reaction to anything. And it's just kind of making their side look even worse. And we can agree with that. We can see that they've lost the plot. And that's where we get to the next part. And this is where things actually get even worse, because we're going to talk about leftists defending these actions. Here's a left-wing YouTuber named Shu, and they're saying 1773 be like, yikes, not a good look, dumping tea in the harbor, that's someone's property. So this is responding to a tweet from Andy No. He's got a video here. We can see it actually. And you can see these are people attacking this police station. There's a police station around here. They're throwing stuff on the cop cars. People are breaking windows and violently crashing stuff. Obviously they're breaking the law. They're doing things. They're going too far. And this has nothing to do with what's claimed in the initial tweet, 1773. They're referencing the Revolutionary War whenever we had the Boston Tea Party is what's getting a nod to here. And that has nothing to do with that at all. That was a peaceful demonstration of the Americans dumping the tea into the water because we didn't want to pay taxes to the British. We'd asked them to give us representation in government. They refused. So we had a sort of nonviolent protest. Sure, there was some property damage there. Yeah, you could count the tea, but this is a whole other thing. This is people not trying to get their freedom. They're not going for representation. These people are race baiting. They're following these fake narratives in the news. They're not fighting for their freedom. They're not going up against an oppressive, kind of British government, the king, stuff like that. This is totally unrelated. And the comparison is just insane. I can't believe someone would even say that, but it just goes to show how far these leftists have gone. They will defend even the worst of actions. They're defending these looters and these people breaking stuff and destroying the city in Minneapolis. And it's just a really bad look. And it goes to show how far off these guys have gone. This stuff is getting even worse too. Like, this is only the beginning. They will defend this. This is basically the left wing kind of infusing Antifa. That's the thing that's kind of their violent arm. That's them saying, oh, we think it's okay to get violence against people. And the way they do it is actually really sneaky. Before we get to that, though, here's another example. Ilhan Omar, this is her daughter retweeting stuff about helping these protesters. They call them protesters at the beginning, but really there's no protesting. There's no signs. There's no peaceful demonstration. This is violent looters. These are thieves. These are criminals. These are people stealing stuff. And we can see this is Ilhan Omar's daughter retweeting it, say, want to help your comrades. So grade up sort of socialist, communist reference, trying to support them, giving them these supplies and stuff like, oh, let's support the robbers. Like, let's go help those people that are burning down their city. It makes no sense. And this gets me back to this, the idea they've gotten so far into their rhetoric, they can't see straight. And the whole process that I was getting at before, it basically goes like this. The leftists kind of, first they demonize people they don't like. They call you names. They call you racist, sexist, homophobic. Sometimes they say, 1940s German, other insults. They call you things like that, nationalist. And that kind of is their first step to kind of demonize you and turn you into something that's not sympathetic to anyone. They want to kind of tear you down and call you names, call you racist is kind of what they have gone and done in Minnesota. It's about calling you racist, racist, racist. The cops are racist. The city's racist. And then that gives them the power to then act out in very aggressive, sometimes violent ways, because then they have this belief of Antifa. Antifa comes in because they say, oh, they think violence is okay if their political opponent is an oppressor, if they're like this sort of authoritarian person, like a dictator, it's okay. They think they're trying to make themselves out to be heroes. So first they have to make a villain, they villainize people, and then they bring in these Antifa tactics and go after them. And this is their 1, 2, 3 step into being violent. They're trying to justify their violence. They're trying to, enact this like political warfare. It's almost like terrorism. It's, in a way, sometimes they are terrorizing people, and it's just a really bad, sad story. And to see it go this far is really amazing. This is a very interesting story to me. It's not good in many ways, but also interesting and revealing. We're seeing a lot of new sides to the left. The fact that they'll defend this stuff, the fact that they'll say that's okay. They compare themselves to American revolutionaries too. I mean, that's a very complimentary comparison. They think they're fighting for freedom and the right and justice, and they want to be these heroes. They see themselves as heroes. And that's the problem. And that's what's going on here, is that since they want to be these heroes, they want to have virtue, they virtue signal and act like they're saving everyone. Well, the problem now is there's not that many villains in the real world, in the present. There's not as many violent, actual racists as there used to be. There's not as many terrible, dictators and governments to take down. There's no rights that they don't have. So they have to reach and make stuff up. And in a way, what they do is they just go after things that are in front of them that they just kind of generally don't like. They don't like the police, so they vilify them and call them racist. They don't like conservatives, so they make us out to be racist, and they give us false claims about abuse and stuff like that. That's how they go after their opponents, and we're really seeing the end result of that. It's violence and chaos and destroying the city, and that's kind of the ipso facto result of this far radical left-wing stuff, okay? We've got one more thing to share. I think this one's from Katie Hopkins. Is this what you guys call justice? That's referencing that cop case. And this is the clip. It has 2 million views, so it's very interesting. This is another thing I was saying. It seems like we're in a movie, like an apocalypse movie. Right there, you can see them banging the register. They're trying to crack some cash out of the register. Not very smart, because I'm sure they clear those registers a lot, like multiple times a day. So at the most, they'll get like a few bucks out of that, if anything. Like, I don't know when they went and did this riot either, but if you look in the store, I mean, it's smoky. This guy has a little goofy smile at the end, but it looks like you're in a post-apocalyptic movie. It looks like there's zombies going to come out of the corner or something. I mean, it just doesn't look like we're in the real world. Like, this is like insane. Like this shot right here, you see the smoke, you see the emergency lights on, everything on the floor. I mean, this place has been totally swamped. And sure, yeah, Target has insurance. Like, these guys are all going to get covered, but what is the end game here? What is the goal? I mean, does this really have anything to do with that case and with fighting racism? Like, how does this stop the cops from being supposedly so racist? It's not. It's not really related. It's more about, chaos. These people wanted to steal things. They wanted to get some free stuff. They wanted to take advantage of this sort of race baiting situation that's been caused by the mainstream media, that's been propped up by other popular leftists on Twitter, on YouTube. These leftists are going to defend this stuff. They think of themselves as these revolutionary heroes. They want to save the world, but really they're destroying it. I mean, they're not saving anything. There's no proper end game. They're not trying to free themselves from Britain. They're not trying to take down a dictator who's conquering parts of Europe. Like, there's no real villain here. There's just the bad people that try to make themselves out to be the heroes when really they're the villains. We know that they're the real baddies. They're the ones destroying our society, our infrastructure. They're taking down buildings. They're taking down businesses. They're just not following the rule of law. They don't think they have to pay for stuff. This is another thing that goes along with being liberal these days. They're feeling entitled. They think they're entitled to things. They don't think they should have to pay or work or earn or do their part, encourage each other to kind of contribute together. It's like, no, liberals just take. They just want to have everything for themselves. They feel entitled to it. And this goes to show that very, very well. It's like an example of how they're that greedy, they're that entitled, and they feel like they just deserve it just for existing when really they don't. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Very interesting to talk about how these things are going on, these bad demonstrations gone wrong, these cities getting ruined, and apparently this is happening in other places in the country too. We might continue talking about this story in another video, in the next video. If you guys are interested in that, make sure you comment and like. Give us some support. Let's get to say 1,000 or 2,000 likes, and then we'll keep talking about this Minnesota story and how these kinds of demonstrations have hit other cities. Thanks again for your time. You guys are the best. Have a great day.